Greetings, my little pumpkin seeds, and welcome to my celebrity pumpkin seed roast. Now, before I get started, I have to apologize for my tardiness tonight. I almost didn't make it at all. See, I was driving down the road, and I ran into a bit of a rough patch, and, well, here I am. What a mess that was. I haven't seen so much squash since that elephant sat on the dessert table at Thanksgiving last year. I have to say, it's great to be among such distinguished company. We have some very special pumpkin seeds here tonight. Give yourselves a round of applause. Alright, now by the sound of applause, how many of you can trace your lineage back to the pumpkin that was turned into Cinderella's coach? Imagine that was quite an exciting time. Must have been really glamorous. I mean, think of it. Being Cinderella's coach was the pinnacle of that pumpkin's life. And it would never know such excitement again. Nobody ever talks about what happened to it after that fateful night when the clock struck 12. All the other pumpkins in the patch got sick of it telling that story. Nobody really believed it. Eventually, developed all the classic symptoms of depression. Didn't find joy in things it used to love. Became extremely withdrawn. Sank in on itself, really. Just sort of sat there and withered away. Sorry, I didn't mean to make this about myself. On a brighter note, how many of you have roots in Sleepy Hollow by sound of applause? Galloping Hessian of the Hollow? Headless Horseman? Ring any bells? Oh, little known fact. He was called the Headless Horseman not because he had no head, but because nobody would give him any. He was so ashamed he started wearing a jack-o'-lantern over his head. And speaking of jacking, let's just say there was more than one kind of seed in the local pumpkin patch. He wasn't fooling anybody. He was hiding his face, but everyone still knew it was him. And he's the only guy with the thing on his head, right? And then there was the school teacher, Ichabod Crane. I like to call him Icky. He wasn't the most handsome man in Sleepy Hollow. He was lanky and uncoordinated. His ears were too big and his nose was way too big for his head. He had no wealth. He didn't even have a home. And he relied on the parents of his students. He used to take turns giving him room and board. But Icky was intelligent. He was well-read, erudite, well-mannered. The ladies loved to be around him. He was trying to convince this one girl, Katrina, to marry him because she was so beautiful and because her dad was loaded. But Icky had a rival, a guy named Abraham, called himself Brom Bones for some reason. I think it's because he wanted to bone Katrina. Hey, who has two thumbs and bones Katrina? Brom bones Katrina. So this rivalry continued to escalate, until one day Boney decided to steal the horse and the jack-o'-lantern and wear it as a disguise, so he could go out in the woods and whack Icky, or off Icky, or whack off Icky, or something like that. And the horseman would take the rap for it. So people went looking for Icky the next day, but all they could find was Icky's hat and a smashed pumpkin on the ground. So with Icky out of the way, Katrina ended up marrying Boney. But it turns out Katrina was just using Icky to make Boney jealous. So maybe those two were right for each other after all. Personally, when Boney put that thing on his head, I like to think he got some seed in his eye. And if he did, I'd say he got what was coming to him. So, other celebrity pumpkins. How many of you are descendants of the Great Pumpkin? Not many people believe the Great Pumpkin actually existed. Remember Linus from Peanuts? He's the kid that took his blanket with him everywhere he went. He's the only one who really believed in the Great Pumpkin. And you know what I think? Santa Claus, the Easter Bunny, Tooth Fairy, God, all fiction. But the Great Pumpkin was real. You're all out of your gourd, you know that? What can you expect when you grow up in such a seedy place? But seriously, folks, I understand how difficult it is when your home is demolished and you're forcefully evicted. They take that shell that was once your home and carve it into fanciful and grotesque shapes. What's the word for that? It starts with gentrification. Yes. They scoop you up out of your home where you've lived your entire life, and you're discarded like dross. You feel worthless. It seems you don't have a friend in the world. But on the bright side, you haven't been forgotten. I heard they lit a candle in remembrance. What, too soon?